Follow-up reports are our way of going back after an audit to see if change is actually happening.
Sometimes we find an agency has followed all of our recommendations and we're happy to see positive change in the city, and sometimes there's still room for improvement.
Our follow-up reports help make sure an agency cannot ignore our recommendations without being held accountable.
We follow up on every recommendation that we make that the agency agrees with. But we do program that into our risk assessment to determine if we do want to conduct another audit. Follow-up audits, we've had a couple recently, Child Welfare Services at the Department of Human Services, and the other one was the Disabled Parking Program, which currently is in the Department of Public Works. The Disabled Parking Services, that audit was done in 2016, and we found that there was really, I would call it haphazard enforcement of disabled parking. The parking enforcement was largely done by volunteers, many of whom were disabled themselves. Dependent upon the enthusiasm of the volunteer, you could get good enforcement or you could get, poor enforcement.
Our first finding was that the city should take action to ensure that accessible parking is readily available for our residents and visitors with disabilities. This was not implemented.
We recommended that there be better enforcement of disabled parking. The administration added 3 FTEs to that function. That's great. We think that's good. We asked them to identify where the disabled parking spots are, and they have not accomplished that. We want all citizens to be able to access parking. We want to be open and accessible, and I think that's just part of who we are. We found that the people that work in the Child Welfare Service Division have to have a background investigation. The department did not do a very good job of documenting the background investigation. I'm not saying that people with criminal records are working with children. I'm saying that they did not document the background investigations. We also found that they didn't do a very good job of coming up with indicators of success for some of the programs that they are operating. And in both cases, I think the department has responded appropriately and done a good job of implementing our recommendations. Frequently, people in the community ask me about the recommendations that we make in our audit reports. And we follow up on every recommendation that is made that the department or the agency agrees with. Disability parking, we're disappointed with the results of that. Because they haven't been implemented the way we think they should be implemented, it's likely that's something that we're going to take a closer look at in the future. Child Welfare Services, they did implement everything that we asked them to do. I think that demonstrates that the audits can and do work. That's how I think we, the administration, discharge our public trust to the taxpayer. That's it for this episode of Ask the Auditor. If you'd like to ask the auditor a question, please submit your question to auditor@denvergov.org, and maybe your question will be the next question on the next episode of Ask the Auditor.